Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Reed. Hall will not be joining us for this episode. He is enjoying his Memorial Day at a cookout like you should be enjoying it, but the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. But now we are rejoined by brother of the podcast himself, Mr. Logan Paulsen. How are you doing on this fantastic Monday? It's hot.
It is hot. I'm having a great Monday, hanging out with the family, doing all that stuff. Why aren't you guys at a cookout? Why are you guys here doing podcasts?
Besides you, Logan, I don't really have a lot of friends. No, that's funny. I was out yesterday. We went over to a friend's house that had a little baby pool. So we brought our son. He's 18 months. And we put, I'm stupid. I didn't realize that the swim diapers, like they're not real diapers. So I put on them like an hour before we went, and I go and get him out of the car seat when we're going in. I'm like, damn, man, you're so sweaty, James. Like,
oh no,
entire back, his legs. And then Lindsay was like, yeah, that's not sweat. Did you put one of those bathing suits on him? And I was like, oh God, no. And the entire car seat was just drenched in pee. And
oh, dude, just having kids.
It's a rookie move.
Yeah, I know. It was a very rookie move.
Rookie move. But speaking of Logan, I wanted to ask you something because it just got reported earlier today by Nikki Giabala of the Washington Post that Don Warren, the head pro scout for the Commanders, is going to be stepping away. Obviously, everyone in this area knows about Don Warren. He played for the Redskins. He's considered one of the Hogs. And this is somebody who Ron Rivera's had in his pro scout going back to his days in Carolina. How big of news is this for the Commanders?
I think it's a big deal, obviously, and he's done a great job. I think they've done a really nice job over the last 2 or 3 years in terms of evaluating free agents and evaluating draft picks. But I do think, like all things, that good things must come to an end, and he's had a really long run, one that I'm sure Ron is grateful for. But I think it's time that he, steps away and gets away with his family. And that's the nature of this business. That's the nature of life. So, hopefully they get someone in there who's very, very talented, and they do a good job with that evaluation process of this potential new hire.
Yeah. Hopefully they can get something going in there. But so anyway, a lot of talk I haven't heard that much talk lately about Chase Young. We all know he's coming back from his injury, but people seem to kind of be writing him off almost. It's like the last season kind of rubbed people wrong, I think, because he had such high expectations. Coming back from this injury, what in your mind would be a successful year for Chase Young, maybe stats wise or game impact?
Yeah, so I think you hit the second one there is probably the one that I'd more lean to, honestly, is just game impact, like his ability to affect the rush, down in and down out, critical situations, 2-minute, third down, red zone. How does he play there? And then he's always been pretty solid on first and second down, but can he eliminate some of those mental mistakes, those mental errors that we saw from him last season early on? And I think that would just show a mental maturation and a physical maturation, because I think it would indicate that he's got a better process going into each game in terms of his rush plan. Obviously, in terms of his lack of mental mistakes, just understanding, where his limitations are and where the way he's supposed to fit in the defense, I think is going to be really important. I mean, because I think everyone saw, when Casey and James came in and played in the second half of the season, the defense got a little bit better, and a little bit of that's just where they're supposed to be. So imagine if you get Chase playing where he's supposed to be and impacting the game the way we all know that he can. I think that would be very, very critical for his development moving forward. It would just show a maturity, which I think at this point in his career, I don't want to say like I'm talking bad about him, but it's a question that I have about him moving forward.
Right. So last year, I know, like I said, fans were disappointed. He had crazy expectations. And then he did kind of get a little bit better before the injury, a couple of games leading up into it. But what did you see from him that really, what was it? What was it that just wasn't leading to production? Was it just him being out of alignment or out of spot, or what was he doing wrong?
Well, I think one of the big things for me is I coach a couple of defensive ends in the NFL, and I watch a lot more defensive ends than I did even when I was playing. And one of the things that I noticed with good rushers is that they have a excellent understanding of rhythm and timing into the move, right? So if you look at most rushers, it's 3 steps to throw your move. And Chase would get to his second step, be about to put his third step down and start shuffling. And because these tackles are so good and so explosive, the second you add that shuffle to your move, you've eliminated any power for a bull rush. You've eliminated any opportunity to attack the edge. And one of the things you loved about him when he was at Ohio State is that he was very, very sharp, kind of like the Bosa brothers, in terms of understanding his angle to the tackle and then his plan once he got there. If the tackle was going to overset, he was going to do double wipers inside move, right? If the tackle was going to set his feet or give him his chest, he was going to bull, right? If the tackle was short on the angle, he was going to outside wipers and bend the corner and run. And so I just didn't see a guy who had that same level of proficiency down in and down out as the pass rusher. Now, I think as a run player, he did a fine job. I think his deficiencies or his issues came when he was out of his gap, right? And like that's, if you look at Matt Ioannidis, you look at Jamie, you look at Cole, look at Duran, look at Allen, because this is a gap for gap defense. Everyone has one gap. Anytime you're out of your gap, it's going to look pretty glaring and cause a lot of issues for the defense. So I think that's where not only he struggled, but the defense as a whole struggled early last year. So I think if you can get that rush rhythm, that rush angle corrected, that'd be great. And then also I think understanding where he fits in the context of the defense and how he's helping other players out is going to be a big thing for him going into 2022.
Right. So then that's correctable, right?
I think so. Yeah. And it really depends on the coach, you know what I mean? And do they get after him? And that's why it would be nice, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, if he was here right now, because like this is all classroom stuff that he's doing right now. This is understanding how you fit in the defense, understanding your gap, understanding on this blitz, I have the B gap as opposed to the C gap. And this is why, and this is how I'm helping the rusher. And this is how I'm picking for this guy. And that's all classroom stuff. And so now all that stuff that he had an issue with last year in terms of being where he's supposed to be early on, I think has the potential anyway to be an issue again moving into the beginning of this season. And we'll see what happens. Again, like it's his third year in the defense, like things change. He's coming off an injury, but that's why I personally would like him to be here just from a mental X's and O's standpoint.
Yeah, and then you were at OTAs last week for the start of the Commanders season, and I wanted to get your first impressions of Carson Wentz at practice. I heard you on the Command Center show for the Commanders on YouTube, and you talked about the camaraderie of the offense looking like they were gelling ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
What are your first impressions?
Yeah, I think, this is going to sound redundant probably at this point, but I think this offense looks a little bit ahead of schedule. They've done a really nice job in terms of getting installs in. It looks very sharp. Carson's been in this offense for like a month and a half, 2 months at this point. And for him to kind of have the mastery with the cadence and the formations and calling the play from the sideline, they did a couple periods where like they were calling, Scott Turner was on the sideline. He was calling the personnel groupings and the play in from the sideline in the headset, which is very, very hard to do at this point of the year, especially with a new quarterback. Carson handled that really well. The physical tools are there. The ball velocity is outstanding, coming out of his hand. He seems very decisive with his throws. I think he had a couple misreads, I'd say, over the first 2 days. And by me, a couple, I mean, actually like 2, maybe 3. So out of 60 throws over the first 3 days, I thought he was pretty on it in terms of his process. And I think that's, for me, very, very encouraging. They ran 2-minute. They did some red zone work on Thursday, and that looked really, really sharp. And so, again, for that offense to be where it's at with a new quarterback, with a new receiver, with 2 new offensive guards, they look better and they look well ahead of schedule, which is exciting for me as a fan of football. And it also kind of makes me think, if I were ever a head coach, like maybe this is a process I want to employ, right? Let's push the envelope early because maybe the guys can handle it better than previously thought.
Right. And Logan, of course, you being a former tight end, I mean, who knows tight ends better than you, I mean, maybe Shannon Sharp, I will say.
Yes, yeah, he's pretty good at it, yeah.
Right, yeah. But I can't listen to him talk for too long. I can listen to you talk.
Yeah, but thanks, man. Appreciate it.
This tight end room, it seems to be getting deeper. Like, of course, we have AGG about to switching over to tight end.
Yeah.
Cole Turner, Bates, Samus Reyes is still there. Logan Thomas when he comes back. How do you see this? Yeah, Hodges. Yep. How do you see this tight end room kind of shaping out? And how many do you think they keep?
Well, I think it really depends on like how you look at the young guys, because the guy you didn't even mention was Rogers, who I think is kind of a lock to make the practice squad in terms of upside. And it's really weird looking at that room and seeing Cole Turner 6'6", 245, Hodges 6'8", 245, and Rogers 6'6", 245, 250, whatever he is, and all have these like crazy athletic measurables. Like if you watch them through the periods and you're like, who's number 88 just tearing down the field like this big fast guy, and you're like, oh, that's like the 5th tight end on the roster at this point. So those 3 guys I think really changed the dynamic of the room very dramatically. Like Cole Turner, I will say, over the first 2 days looks like an NFL starting F, and will contribute offensively in a dramatic way if he can get more of the formations lined up. He does a really nice job in terms of catching the contested ball, which is something Ron really talked about a lot. So again, this is 2 days in. He had a little bit of a misfire on the third day, like not a bad day, but not that crazy high first 2 days, right? I think Hodges had a really nice third day. He competes really well in line, and he catches the football well. He understands routes and stems. He's a converted wide receiver. And so I look at that and I say, man, like if you were starting the season today, obviously Logan Thomas is on the roster. Bates has had an outstanding first 3 days, just Mr. Steady Eddie, blocking who he's supposed to, catching the ball when they throw it to him, soft hands. But those 2 young guys are making the team. You know what I mean? They're probably making the team over Sam East, which is a crazy thing to say.
I was just about to ask you about him.
So Sam East has been hurt. He's been out for the first couple of days, but those guys have really done a good job of testifying to themselves. And one thing about Cole Turner that I love is I stayed after and watched individuals on the first day because we could, and they had to do some conditioning, some punishment running, and that dude sprinted those punishment runs. And he just, you can tell he's wired the right way mentally. Like he's competitive. He wants to be great. And I was not that high on him in the evaluation process, but after watching him over 2 days, I think the mental aspect of what he brings is something that I could not quantify from watching the film, and something that says this is a guy you want to bet on moving forward. And again, Hodges, for an undrafted free agent, I think there's a really good shot here for him. So the room gets crazy, and we haven't even talked about AGG. So the first couple of days, AGG, I think, struggled a little bit, to be quite honest. It's a new position, but the third day they did 2 minute. He kind of took on that second group Y role, and looked very, very sharp. And then they had some play action stuff in early in practice where he was attached running high crosses and stuff. And he caught the ball and literally ran away from the defense. So if he can figure it out, that's a nice weapon, explosive piece inside for the offense. And I just say all of a sudden, I can't think of a time over the course of my 10 years or covering this team or another team where you have 4 dudes who are freaky big athletes with so much upside. So as a fan of the position, I'm really excited to see how this progresses over the course of the offseason.
My bad, Kyle. I'll just say something. Then Sammis Reyes is such an athletic freak, and he's so raw, and he showed off in blocking last year, which I think was kind of unexpected. But do you really want to risk putting him on the practice squad? Because somebody would end up snatching it. It's just weird. They're gonna have to make some big decisions with that tight end room. It's a good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's 3 days, so things can change pretty dramatically. There's no pads on.
We're probably the deepest tight end room in the NFL now. Yeah, probably winning a Super Bowl. So.
Right.
I just heard it. Logan Paulsen says that we're winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I think that with Sam East, the thing that's tough for him, right, is when you bring him in with all those athletic measurables, he probably projects as an F just as an athlete. But then when you see him on the field, he's got more of a Y skill set. And usually you don't carry more than one Y on the roster, right? So how does he fit in now with this group? He does play teams. Those other guys haven't done any special teams work other than the minor drill work that they do in practice, which is 15 minutes for 3 days now. They look fine, but again, you don't really know until you get in a game. And Sam East has played special teams in the NFL. So I think that's an important variable to consider. You don't want to lose him. I think the guy that you might be able to get to practice squad is Hodges, but I think if he does anything in the preseason, man, from what I've seen, and I have access that other people don't have access to, I wouldn't want to risk it because his upside is so great. So again, it's for whatever reason, maybe because I'm a tight end and I nerd out over this stuff, but I really like the group. I really like what they bring. I like their competitiveness. I think Castillo has done a great job. I didn't know him as a tight end coach. I knew him as an O-line coach, but to see him post-practice, the way he communicates with those guys and his evaluation of these guys, because he was a big part of getting those guys in here, that cultivating that room, I say to myself, they've done an excellent job with that. And I think the fans should be excited about it.
Oh, I am wholeheartedly indeed. Yeah. Now, my questions have regressed now, Logan, because I did have big ones about Juan Castillo. But to wrap this up, I got a couple more questions for you, Logan. We talked about Carson Wentz and your first impressions of him at OTAs. Let's switch to the defense. Cole Holcomb has the green dot in his helmet. He's calling the defense. The team is really in the front office, is really rallied behind Cole Holcomb. What have you seen out of Cole Holcomb thus far? And then going into the season, are you confident with him being at middle linebacker?
It seems like the franchise is really pushing him too. The Washington Instagram accounts posting Cole Holcomb stuff all the time now.
So I think when you watch Cole Holcomb, I went back and did an eval. So I watched 250 plays of his key plays last year, all of them. And he progressed nicely. And so when you look at, I think to get not super deep, but I'm here, so we're gonna deep dive it. Okay,
let's do it.
So what I think is, when you think about middle linebackers, like there's so much variance in the position. Like if you look at the free agent linebacker market right now, like big names like the Quan Alexanders, Dante Hightowers, all those guys, they grade relatively like in the 55 to 60 range. Cole Holsom graded at 59 last year, right, by PFF's metrics, right? And you can talk about the deficiencies in his game, whatever. I will say the defense here is very hard on linebackers. Playing linebacker in the NFL is very challenging anyway, and you need a certain kind of athlete to play the position. So Cole is very athletic. Jamin's very athletic, and they project to have this really nice upside. So to me, if you're going to bet on somebody that's going to be relatively inexpensive, that knows your system, that you feel good about moving forward, Cole's the guy you want to bet on, I think, right? And then, so I think Cole's looked fine over the first couple of days. It's hard to tell with linebackers. I think there's been a couple misfits here and there. Remember that everyone's got a gap defense. It can be really hard, especially as more complicated runs start coming in, when they start having two pullers, like, where do I fit in this new surface, right? And he's had all the linebackers have had a hard time with that, but I love the speed with which he plays with. He seems to be playing confident. They seem to be in the right spots from a coverage standpoint. Jamin, I think, is a guy that I'm cautiously optimistic about. I think when you watch him, he still has some issues in terms of taking on blocks, but all the practices I watched last year, I never really saw him open it up, because he's kind of, it's the hamster wheels turning. He doesn't know what the heck's going on. And so with him in practice, like every day, he's tearing to the football like a man possessed to get there. And I think that shows a nice shift in mindset. And I think both those guys are pretty exciting moving forward. And I think, I'm not trying to say they're going to be the best linebackers in the NFL, but I think they're going to be very, very solid. And they do have really high upside, which is something that I think fans should be excited about.
Yeah. Little known fact about Jamin Davis, though, he also has the lowest hairline in the NFL.
Yeah, he does.
It's very low.
I'm very jealous of it.
Right?
But I will say, Logan, my next question for you, like with Chase Young, it reminds me like the confidence with Jamin Davis, because it's almost like confident play. You talked about that stutter step, right? And that's what it kind of brings back to me, like just being confident in what you do, like being determined, doing straight exactly what you want. But last question. One player that Washington cannot afford to lose this season.
That's a great question. And I've never had that. That hasn't been asked to me yet since this whole process started. And right now, if I had to say anything, it would probably be Carson Wentz, totally honest. Like, I think like that's maybe the easy way out here. But, like his impact, or my assumed impact he's going to have on this offense, excellent hat, by the way, is that he's going to revolutionize what they've been doing. He's going to allow Scott Turner to execute what he wants. And if they have to, to get this out there, like Taylor Heineke's looked also very solid over the first couple of days. Okay. But you do see, watching them back to back, you see what the stronger arm gives you in this offense. His ability to just kind of get the ball there on time, on schedule, not have to see it totally perfectly, compared to Heinicke, I think it shows you what the buy was, like what you're getting with that purchase. So that's an interesting one. And I think on defense, I think Cam Curl right now seems to be the other guy. He's starting at Buffalo nickel, and he's done a great job with the first couple of days. And
Rivera talked about his leadership too. Did you see that?
I didn't see that, no, but I don't doubt it. From seeing him around the building and hearing what guys have to say, he, again, the ability to play the Buffalo nickel, the ability to cover a little bit better than Landon, the ability to play the post, and the flexibility that gives you, because now all of a sudden you don't have to rely on Butler to play in the box. Like he's been playing more post safety, and I think eventually he'll become your starter just over the first couple of days. Right now it's Forrest. Is that his name? DeForest?
Yeah, no, Derek Forrest.
Derek Forrest, right? I keep thinking of DeForest Buckner. Yeah, Derek Forrest.
I think about him all the time too.
Yeah, Derek Forrest has been starting there, but I do think when you compare Derek Forrest to Butler, I think Butler has more upside in the post. So having that flexible piece there with Curl allows you to get the best people on the field in the back end.
Okay.
And I think that's a guy that is going to really add a ton of value for them on defense.
I totally get that. And to wrap this up, Logan, just real quick. I know you're not a uniform guy, but you being at OTAs, what did you think of the helmets?
Honestly, this is going to sound stupid, but I didn't even notice the uniforms. And then someone came up to me and was like, "Man, how good are those uniforms?"
Answer.
Yeah, how good do those uniforms look? And I was like, I guess they look pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, I just like, I'm there to watch football, and like I like the uniforms, like they look good, whatever it is. But that's not like my cup of tea necessarily. Like if you want fashion questions, I'm sure there's other analysts that can break down the shapes and the colors and the positions. Mike, you good at that? Mike, what do you think about the uniforms?
Oh, I think that is amazing. All right, Rolf, when you see Jamin Davis, can you tell him to make sure that he doesn't raise his eyebrows too high? I don't want him getting caught in his hair.
So getting his hairline. Have you guys got any players on here recently?
Oh
yeah,
we had Cam Curl on recently about a month or so ago. We had Tyler Larson on Friday, who's going through his rehab. He got a nickname, Milestone Tyler, because he's been there every single day, so he's reaching his. But
nice.
Yeah, so he's coming back, but most likely he will be back sometime during the season. We hope so, because he did do well last season. But Logan, make sure you guys go follow Logan on Instagram, Logan_Paulsen82. The best film breakdowns on the internet. They were so good, Washington Commanders had to give him a job. And look, how smart are they for doing that? Logan, I can't thank you enough for doing this, brother. I hope you go and enjoy your Memorial Day, brother.
Thanks, man. You guys too. Appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Always appreciate you.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, the myth.
Forever.
And your best friend, Logan Paulsen.
Yeah, he's my best friend. Yeah, he's my best friend, I would say.
Yeah.
Logan's always so good at that. I love like you could tell when we started asking about tight ends and then we followed it up and you could just see how excited he got because that dude just loves tight end play. I feel like he tries to shy away from it sometimes, but once you get him talking about it, like that dude can talk all day about tight ends.
I know Logan is a lot like Doc Walker in the way that it's very, like he's not going to lie to you. He's going to be straight up, especially with the uniforms. He's told us before he doesn't. But I was just hoping that maybe because him not being a uniform guy, that it did pop out to him. But what a football player. The dude is just jacked up to be there in person to see football being played. He doesn't even notice the helmets.
I didn't even notice the helmets. Like, what sport were you watching, sir? But no, that's just crazy, though. Like, he's just that into football.
Yeah, and before we are joined by our next guest and we answer fan questions and stuff, kind of want to talk about the news of last week. We talked about the Grant Cohn thing with Javon Kinlaw, but this last one was absolutely insane about the airlines at the airport. The former Denver cornerback punching the airline worker. You remember? Did you hear about that?
Hear about it. I watched that video because I'm always scrolling through. I always see the most viral stuff. It's tight. But no, and I had no idea it was an NFL player. I remember just watching the video on Reddit like the day before when we talked about it and being like, man, that dude should not have went and provoked that dude. Maybe he wouldn't have gotten dropped. Maybe he wouldn't have gotten beat it up. Maybe he would have gotten beaten up. Yeah, maybe he would have gotten beaten up. And then you told me it was a former NFL player, and I was just like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Like that dude, I want to see like leading up to all that exactly what went down because like that guy didn't want to do it. He didn't want to hit that poor fat dude in the face, but like he had to. He had no choice.
Yeah, your response reminds me of the Cardi B upload from the other day where she showed this like not a cruise liner, but a yacht sinking. And the caption of it was the ship sank. It was like, oh, Cardi B. But so what happened is Brendan Langley, who was a former cornerback for the Denver Broncos, was at the airport, and apparently instead of paying $5 for like a luggage carrier, he brought a wheelchair. So he had his luggage in the wheelchair, and I'm sure this is what the worker came up to him about, and they got into an altercation. And you could see the worker come up and slap him. And Langley says to the kid, he's like, you all see that? And then he hits him in the face. And the guy literally like almost passes out from it and then comes back on him. He's like, oh, you want more? And he kept going. And then the guy obviously went down to the ground. But apparently that worker has been fired.
Thank God. Like imagine being somewhere and a worker comes up to you and because they don't like what you're doing and slaps you in the face. Like, what?
Yeah,
that's insane.
Apparently, Brendan Langley has had charges pressed against him, but not the worker. So the worker got fired from Delta or wherever, what airline whatever it is, but he is facing simple assault charges.
That should be pretty easy to beat. It's all on video.
I mean, I can understand why the airline worker went up to him, was taking his job way too seriously. Like, you can't be ruining the system like this using a wheelchair. Like, if there's not anybody that needs it, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, no, but also, yeah, like, who cares? I mean, yeah, obviously you probably shouldn't have done that, but also, like, who cares though? Like, just be like, no. And if he says no, I'm using it, just be like, all right, I guess we're charging you for it or whatever you got to do. But I don't know.
Yeah, dude, I'm really excited about going to OTAs tomorrow. First time ever. Obviously, I've been at training camp in Ashburn. I've done some work inside of Ashburn for my company when they did the renovation of the practice facility a couple years ago. So it'll be the first time going back in since I've wired up Ron Rivera's office, Dan Snyder's office, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun to be out there. But what do you like if you were going, Reed? What's the one thing that you'd be looking forward to, just based off like matchups, like position battles?
Right. So, I mean, obviously, first thing, and like I know this is going to sound like such a homer thing, and it's the obvious answer, but like Logan said, like you want to go see Carson Wentz right now. Like you want to see exactly what he's about. You want to see that difference in the arm strength between him and Taylor Heineke. You want to see what he can bring. I mean, the guy there's a reason he was the number 2 pick in the draft. The guy has from North Dakota State. Like the guy has unreal physical ability. So you just kind of want to see what he can bring to this offense. But I'm like we talked about the tight end room I'm excited about, but I'm also excited about this offensive line, the interior of the offensive line, both guard positions. I mean, I want to see kind of how Sadiq Charles has kind of progressed. Like we talked about him on Friday a little bit. I want to see if Trey Turner still has it or if Wes Schweitzer is going to come in. Like who's going to end up starting at that other guard position outside of Andrew Norwell? Because I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough because there's 3 players that you think can obviously fill that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. The interior of the offensive line is going to be probably one of the most fun matchups to watch, especially going into training camp and OTAs, just because you want to see who wins those battles. Is Wes Schweitzer going to overtake Trey Turner for that right guard spot, or is Trey Turner going to solidify it and make sure that it is his coming from Ron Rivera? But let's go back to you. Let's go to you, Street Scores. We're joined by our guest.
What's up, man?
Mr. Southern Georgia himself. Mr. ATL, how are you doing?
Did you win that, Mr. Southern Georgia?
Southern Georgia doesn't make sense. I don't know.
Like
I just spit out some random words.
I was like, there you go.
How y'all, man? I'm fine, man. Just got done with some yard work. How y'all doing?
Dude, I mowed my lawn this morning. I know exactly how you're feeling. The sun was beating today, wasn't it?
Ooh. I haven't went outside in about 3 years.
Yeah, it looks like it. We could tell. We could tell.
I'm sickly pale.
It reminds me of that Office episode when Michael goes to Kelly's like party thing and her parents are there and he's talking about his girlfriend and they say like your girlfriend's very fair. And he's like, yes, very fair, very kind. Not knowing what fair meant. But yeah. Street Scores, I want to ask you, what are you looking forward to in these OTAs? Is there anything that you want to see out of like the videos that get uploaded? What do you want to see out of OTAs?
Probably, I feel like, of course, quarterback, we need to know what Carson Wentz is going to look like. But for me personally, the tight end group is one of the most exciting position groups on the roster, just off of like the pure freak athletes. You have Curtis Hodges, who's the tallest
6'8", 265.
You know, he's a former wide receiver too at Arizona State. Like, imagine going up being a corner and going up against somebody 6'7", 6'8". Like
intimidating. Even if he doesn't know how to run any route,
it doesn't matter.
6'8". What do I do?
Right.
And then, of course, the 5th round pick in Cole Turner, who you could argue has one of the higher ceilings of receiving ability, especially red zone wise, out of our entire tight end group. I'm ready to see what Samus Reyes looks like after 1 year of football in life. You know, when we picked him up, he didn't know what cover 2 was. He didn't know what zone coverage was. He was completely raw in every aspect. And he's our most physical blocking tight end. So, you know, you build on that. You have something to work there with. And then with him being such a freak athlete, if you can get him to learn how to catch, we have money there as far as receiving goes. But he may still be a year or 2 away from that. And then the one I'm most excited about is Armani Rogers, another former quarterback like Logan Thomas. Freak athlete, little undersized for tight end. Hopefully he can gain some weight and make the team. It's just, and then of course you still have John Bates and Logan Thomas. If Logan Thomas is even going to be healthy for week 1, otherwise it's going to be John Bates and Cole Turner. Cole Turner, 5th round pick, gonna have to start immediately as like a tight end too. So yeah, that's my most exciting position. Just off of the freak athletes, all the potential. Can't wait to see what happens.
It's so funny that you said that because we just had Logan Paulsen on right before you, and we brought up tight ends to him, of course, and he said that he was just going on. He was like, every single one of these guys, you can make an argument can make the roster. Like, these guys are all freaks of nature. They're all bringing something special.
And the one thing that sticks out to me that from what he said, Street,
Cole Turner,
was the fact that he said, like, in my history with this team, being around this team, never seen the tight end room like it is, just stacked with the athletic ability, and wholeheartedly agree with him. But before we get into our fan questions, Street, my father-in-law, the Colonel, he's a huge fan of yours. He follows you, he subscribed to your channel, watches it all the time. He wanted me to press on you a little bit about how you felt about the draft picks.
Okay.
Have you changed at all on your feeling with the draft picks?
again, I have two different grades. My heart, I hate it, but again, with my logic, I just try to break down as seeing it from Ron Rivera's point of view. They want to build on the 7 wins we got last year, maybe win 8, 9, maybe even 10 games, depending on how good Carson Wentz is. They wanted to draft a lot of high floor guys, even though I do give credit. I think Jahan Dotson may have a higher ceiling than what he gets credit for.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Percy Butler and Sam Howell, you're going for high ceiling guys. We'll see what that comes out to be. For me, the reason the grade just gets lowered is because of the players that we had the opportunities of getting and we didn't get, more so than the players that we actually. I don't necessarily hate the guys we got. I'm just really upset about the guys we didn't get. I mean, I was huge Kyle Hamilton, and if not, I was huge Jamison Williams. I feel like you can get receiver in the second round. There was so much talent there. Of course, my guy George Pickens went second round. So again, my heart is destroyed by the draft, but logic, I can see why this team should, even honestly with the schedule, with how weak it is, win 11 games this year. And if you have a draft that brings in multiple starters, that's not a bad draft.
Yeah, and I love the way that you put that out there, because I think a lot of the fan base has a hard time being able to separate the two like you've done. Like, instead of like hating on the guys that they got, you made sure to reiterate and to press on the fact that it wasn't that you have an issue with who they got. It was the fact of who they didn't get.
Right.
And I understand what you mean by that.
Right. And could you imagine real fast, like, everybody's wide receiver rankings generally had Treylon Burks usually ahead of Jahan Dotson most of the time. Could you imagine if we took Treylon Burks and he showed up out of shape and didn't finish the first day of practice? Could you imagine what the media would do about that?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Christ,
yeah, it is a great point. And then George Pickens with the craziest draft selection I've ever seen in my life. Good thing that's going to stay popular forever, just because what a weird standing stance to do.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
No, but I didn't answer it before, but one thing I am really intrigued and excited about going to OTAs tomorrow is seeing Sam Howell. And one of the reasons I say that is because we talked about Logan, like the difference between Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. Taylor has done a great job, he said, so far in OTAs, but he is limited with arm strength, and that does like kind of castrate the offensive playbook and what plays you can execute based on that. So if something does happen to Carson, is Taylor going to come in there? You're going to have to completely change the playbook. So I'm really intrigued to see how Sam Howell looks at OTAs. Because if Sam Howell is really progressing, look really, really good to the point where this coaching staff can feel comfortable with him being a backup, you don't have to change the game plan because Sam Howell has that arm strength. So I am looking forward to seeing how Sam Howell's progressing in the system. Obviously, it's only been a month. We'll see how he looks, but I'm sure he looks like a rookie. But let's get into our fan question, Street. I'm going to ask you this one. This is from our guy, all-star fan of ours, Mr. Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! He said, I took inspiration from, I don't know these names, and Jeff Reinbold talking about on their Inside the Huddle podcast for this week's pod question. Are we underestimating Ron Rivera and what he's done to keep us competitive, given the off-field cesspit that he has inherited?
No, I do believe Ron Rivera has done an excellent job with what he's had to deal with. I mean, just overturning the roster, having to move on from players from the previous regime that, good or bad. I mean, I know some of us felt like Morgan Moses may have been cut too early, but then you see Charles Leno and Samuel Cosby go out there and ball out, and it's like, okay, we see what you're doing here. I mean, the bargain bin signings, of course, we would like to get some of the flashier players, but Logan Thomas, second contract. We were actually able to pay Jonathan Allen, which makes me a little bit more optimistic about our opportunity to pay Terry McLaurin. But J.D. McKissick, it's a cheaper contract. Bobby McCain, same thing. But these are guys that we went and got later in free agency that are starters, that are contributing heavily, and we have them for way cheaper than how their production says they should be paid. All across Wes Schweitzer. I mean, the fact that we think he can honestly start at right guard, I prefer him as a backup just because he's so versatile. Right. Whereas Trey Turner, Andrew Norwell, I can't really see them stepping in at center. Wes Schweitzer can literally play anywhere in the interior, so I prefer him as a backup, which kind of sucks for him because he's good enough to start really, but like he's so good at playing.
He's played fantastic the last 2 years.
Yeah, you just want to reserve him as a backup just in case there's an injury anywhere. But, I mean, that's another bargain bin signing. He was a backup for the Falcons on a bad O-line, and they brought him here, and now he's turned into a really good – so it's just it's just been all over the place. That Ron Rivera and the crew want to give, credit to everybody. They've been able to find talent in the most random of ways.
Yeah, and I, like usual, you and I think alike with Wes Schweitzer. I like to, the best way to be able to explain my feeling with Wes Schweitzer is I like him starting at guard, but I love him as a backup just because in those spot starts, you have a confident guy to be able to be there for you. But I will say we are, I guess, underestimating Ron Rivera and what he's done here. Look, everyone has the excuse of COVID and what went on with COVID, but nobody else has the excuse of going through the off-field issues of Dan Snyder, the sexual abuse, having to basically rebuild this organization like a professional organization. Not having an HR department was absolutely despicable. Him having to bring that in, overhaul the scouting department after Kyle Smith left, being able to do that, and then also being on the field, having to deal with cancer, fighting cancer, and being in this field, being able to make the playoffs the first season with a tough schedule last year, winning 7 games, even though they should have won more. Given with what he's had, yes, I do wholeheartedly agree that we are underestimating what he's done for this organization and trying to build them up into the winner like they should be, like we've been missing for 20 years. So, right. Yes, I do think that we are underestimating Ron Rivera and what he's done.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of what you said, I mean, I was just going to straight up talk about last year. I mean, if you look, the fact that he still won 7 games last year, going up against a murderer's row of quarterbacks with all the crazy injuries that we had, with all the crazy COVID situation at the end of the year, look at how many different offensive line combinations we used. Like the last half of the year, we were on that win streak, and then we kind of got hit, and then things kind of fallen forward. But we were right in the playoff push. We were making a playoff push towards the end of the year, and I think that itself, like, to win 7 games with a bad schedule and win a bad division, that's one thing, and that's cool. But then the next season to come back and win 7 games again, despite everything not going your way. I mean, we lost Chase Young so early in the season. The defense severely underperformed. Ryan Fitzpatrick in the first half, right? Like, the fact that they still won 7 games, I mean, that's pretty impressive to me. And yes, I do think people are kind of overanalyzing it when they call Ron Rivera a dinosaur, and maybe he is stuck in his ways. Maybe we know we're the Commanders and blah, blah, blah. But you got to respect what that dude's doing, because that guy is really changed his culture.
And
it's getting there.
One part that's not being valued enough, that's being undervalued. It's the fact of Ron Rivera and this coaching staff being able to keep these guys, everyone in the organization, on the same wavelength, on the same path. Because with all the off-field stuff, it would be very easy for the players to really get, just confused, get off track, right? And the fact that they have kept them like in-house, like everyone is focused on football, I think that says a lot, and we are undervaluing that as a fan base. But Reed, right. I'm going to start this one with you. This is from our questionnaire, Commander OC on Twitter. June 1st is fast approaching. What all was supposed to happen around June 1st regarding Landon Collins' contract? And what could this mean for the future of McLaurin and Wentz's contracts?
I mean, obviously having him a post June 1st designation, we can end up signing him again. I mean, there's of course rumors. Who knows what's going to happen with that? I think that they're really comfortable with Cam Curl in the Buffalo position, but saving the money, I mean, that's part of the reason why they did it. I mean, that's why they've done so many of the moves, or not made moves, to be honest, is to save that money so that way they can re-sign Terry, and so that way they can offer him the amount of money that they feel is necessary. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff. I guarantee we're still going to bring in some guys right around that time after OTAs, maybe within the coming days after June 1st. But yeah, I wouldn't think we're done yet, but I mean, I think they want to get Terry done kind of before they make any long-term big investments on anybody.
Absolutely. And the one thing is that June 1st designation for Landon Collins, that would give Washington $11 million. So essentially, Look at it as if June 1st is like a day that Washington is getting, for the salary cap, they're getting their paycheck. You're getting a little bit extra there to work with, and that's why you could get Terry McLaurin's contract done. And then Wentz, there is an option in Wentz's contract in order to convert it to like salary bonus based, which would free up a bunch of cap space. I think like $10 million or something like that. So that could really help this organization as well, trying to get that money in for Terry McLaurin. What do you think, Street? I'm sorry if I took away any of your ammo.
I mean, y'all basically did say everything. I mean, just to add to that, I would like to bring Landon Collins back. Of course, Terry McLaurin is a priority, but if you have any money left over enough that Landon Collins is willing to accept, I would like to bring him back. I felt like he was a pretty big part of that win streak that we had going.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and so it's going to be hard to replace. I mean, of course, we've had talks of Percy Butler. I like Cameron Curl, but neither of those guys are big enough to be like to take as many hits and to be out there in that position as often as he was. So I feel like that there will be a noticeable difference moving on to those guys. So I would like to bring Landon Collins back if possible. I mean, somebody said that on his Instagram or somewhere he's been showing that he wants to come back.
Yep, on his stories and stuff. He's made some. He's
also in contact with Jordan Assery, who he is told that there is mutual interest between the two. But like we've talked about with Logan Paulsen before about Landon Collins, it all comes down to that dollar amount, because obviously we all want Terry McLaurin to get signed, and that money is going to dwindle as soon as that contract is given to Terry. So we have to be smart about it. But obviously we would all love Landon Collins, especially that DB room. Everyone talks about like how bad he played early on, but the fact is he's a captain, not really a captain, but he's a leader in that DB room, and it really does help with that DB room getting everyone acclimated and ready to go.
And that was just early on. After he got switched over to the Buffalo and was playing more closer to the line, that dude played amazing. He was playing at a Pro Bowl level.
Yeah,
easily.
He was. Now let's move on to our Discord chat server for the rest of our fan questions for this show. But we just want to put out there, I completely botched our question last week from Jeff Miles asking about the Discord chat server and what guys would be Washington players. Tony Shivers I missed out on. I had him linked down as Cam Curl. Just because Tony is like one of the best fans out there, and I'm gonna be straight up with that. The dude is reliable, he's constant, he is always going to be supporting, and he's not just supporting one, he's supporting everybody. You'll see him on Twitter really reaching out to everyone and being a support. So I think Cam Curl, just because he is that unsung leader that doesn't get the respect he deserves with how constant he is. The other is Yamstarch, Cole Holcomb, the young up-and-comer. He always is giving me feedback and everything on how the episodes turn out. So Cole Holcomb, without a doubt, just because the homie's got my back, and he's always looking out for us and how we could get better with the episode, and he's as constant as they come. But the next question that we have from the Discord chat server, this is from Tony Shiver Street. I'll go to you with this one. He says he feels like St. Juste is the forgotten man. Do you think that he will be a key contributor this season?
He was really good, especially when William Jackson was struggling to get acclimated to Jack Del Rio's defense, and Kendall Fuller didn't look like what he looked like before he left to go to the Chiefs. Benjamin St. Juste was like our one relatively consistent corner out there, and he was using his length very well. I'm still confused about the concussion injury situation, like why he was out so long. Did they just decide redshirt him for the rest of the year, and we'll just try again next year? Like,
I think it had something to do. I don't mean to put out rumors or anything like that, but I would be willing to bet the accident that happened to DeShazier Everett had a lot to do with Benjamin St. Juste. From what I've heard, Jamin Davis and Benjamin St. Juste were in the car behind them when the accident occurred. And so the accident had a lot more to do than just Jamin Davis and DeShazier Everett. There were a lot of people affected.
Okay. Well, I hope he comes back 100% mentally and physically, because he has a lot of potential there. I didn't necessarily love him when we drafted him, but then throughout the offseason, he started to really show something. And then even early in the regular season, I would say cornerbacks and quarterbacks have like the hardest learning curve going from college to the NFL. So with how good he looked early, made me very optimistic about just his overall career trajectory. And I'm really excited to see him come back. I think he'll be an impactful player.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I just saw a tweet from Antonio Cromartie on Twitter today talking about young DBs and learning about in-breaking routes, because I think he said 90% of the routes run by NFL offenses are all in-breaking. Not many times they're going towards the sideline, so that the young guys need to target there. I love that right there. But I will say, without a doubt, Benjamin St. Juste will be a key contributor. Last offseason, I thought that he could have possibly been starting for this football team, maybe in the slot, but obviously the concussion deterred him a little bit. But regardless, this corner room is probably one of the more thinner position groups on this team, not barring obviously the linebacker group, but that is a position that you're constantly running, and they're always going to be intermingling and changing guys out. I wholeheartedly think that Benjamin St. Juste in his second year going to be acclimated, ready for this defense, having a better understanding of what Jack Del Rio and what Chris Harris, the DB coach, want out of him. I think that he will be a big, big contributor to this defense. It could be an unsung hero based on if any injuries happen to the starters.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, he brings something that nobody else on that cornerback locker room brings to the table. I mean, just his size and his length and his ability to play the ball it's different. I mean, even if he's not getting interceptions, he's always having a hand around the ball. So you really got to respect that. And that's something he really impressed a lot of people with. Is it? Kyle, grow up, dude.
You're rubbing off on me. That's all.
Okay,
it is,
okay. No, I'm not doing. That's disgusting. No, but yeah, he is being forgotten about. Yes, and I do think his little Canadian self that just got married. Shout out to your family. Congrats. Yeah, he's gonna be fine. He's gonna be good.
Yeah. Now the next. Thank you, Tony. That was a fantastic question. Our next question is from Andy Lockhart in the Discord chat server. Oi! Thank you, Andy. Street. Who is your favorite player in today's NFL or Commanders team and why?
Ooh, Terry's an easy one, but other than Terry, I'm really rooting for Antonio Gibson. Probably a little biased behind it though, because he is from Georgia. He didn't go to Georgia; he went to Memphis, but he's from Georgia, so I've always been rooting for him. I think he's just so talented once he can put everything together. And then just also, of course, he wears the grill. I just love a lot of things about Antonio Gibson. So I'm really rooting for him to excel. I think also, I mean, how far our team goes also, it hinges on his back to an extent. So I would probably say Antonio Gibson outside of Terry McLaurin, because he's just Terry McLaurin's the face of the franchise. Right, yeah. Without him, we're lost. We got to get him paid. So, but other than that, Antonio Gibson for sure.
Yeah, you'd have to fight Hall for the rights to Antonio Gibson. That is his boy. He has loved him from the start that we drafted him. For me, Andy, it is Terry McLaurin. Ever since we drafted him, watching videos on him in that day after, I knew that was our best draft pick right there. I knew what he was capable of. Watching him blossom into what he is, I like to talk about him being a rose bush growing in the desert, essentially, with nothing else around him and continuing to produce. There's something to be said for that. I consider him the new age Darrell Green, the offensive version of Darrell Green for this franchise. I don't want him to leave anywhere. He has had the ability, the excuse to be able to not play hard, not to go after the ball as much as he does, but he continues to do it, and it speaks to who he is. And I absolutely love Terry McLaurin. I have his jersey hanging up behind me. That being said, if I was going to be biased based on this podcast, I'd also say Cameron Curl. He has taken out a lot of time for us to be able to come on this podcast, and I love the way he plays. When I watch his film breakdown after we drafted him, I nicknamed him the Plug, just simply because of how he plugged run lanes, and he has been one of the more, I guess you could say, productive safeties that we've had, barring DJ Swearinger, but we actually drafted him in the 7th round. This kid didn't have high expectations, but came in here, did his job, and did it well, and is making a name for himself, is now becoming a leader. So I'll take two. I'll take Cam Curl and Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, obviously Terry, but I'm going to go with another obvious one. And look, I will say, Chase and that, like, if Chase can come back and he can start being the player that we all know he could, I think it's every single fan for this franchise is going to re-fall in love with Chase Young. I feel like people are so down on him, but I'm going to go with Jonathan Allen, man. That guy, he's just such a throwback NFL player. He's an alpha dog. He's in your face. He's somebody that you want with you when you're going into an alley if you're about to go get into a fight. He's the biggest human in terms of arm size that I think I've ever seen. I mean, when we had him on, when we were at the stadium for draft night, I was just like, good God. Like, I was terrified. I couldn't even look him in the eyes. Like, I was scared straight up. So I couldn't imagine going up against him in practice or him being mad at you. Shout out to Deron Payne, man. That takes big old balls swinging on that man. But yeah, so I'm going to go with Jonathan Allen.
He's also a gamer too. And I love that about Jonathan Allen as well.
He's also, I mean, if you look at the season he had last year, I mean, the NFL doesn't give him the respect that he truly deserved. Like last year, he was unreal. He was one of the top 3 defensive tackles in the NFL last year.
Jonathan Allen earned a lot of respect with me. Well, obviously, he already had it, but
I was about to say, I'm sure he was very worried about that.
The fact that even though he signed that big contract, you know, he is probably one of the more expensive guys in this team. The fact that he did come out for draft night and not only met with fans on the field, came over and interviewed with us, giving back to little people. I think it speaks a lot to Jonathan Allen and what he is. I gained a lot of respect for him because a lot of players would say, I'm too big for that. I'm one of the highest paid players. You know, I don't need to be spending time doing that. He didn't do that. He did it for the people, and I really appreciate him doing it.
When you're his size, though, literally everybody's a little person too. So you kind of got to be that.
That's a good point.
No friends.
Now, to wrap up our fan questions, before I have a couple ones for you, Street, this one is from the Colonel, and it's a long one, so let me bring it out for you. Here's a discussion. It appears that all the NFC East teams have bolstered their wide receiving core, maybe with the exception of Dallas letting Amari Cooper go. The Eagles have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and their tight ends like Dallas Goedert. The Giants have Kadarius Toney, Kenny Galladay, and Sterling Shepard. The Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and James Washington. The question is, have we done enough at corner to contain these stud wide receivers? And do you feel that our depth is adequate there?
Well, and that is a relatively loaded question. Well, I guess I could start with, I do feel like the Eagles, I think we have the best receiving group, but if we're talking about take the top 2 receivers from each team, I would probably give that to the Eagles.
I knew I liked you, man.
I'm not too worried about the Giants because can those guys stay healthy? Me personally, I don't know. Maybe I'm biased. Kadarius Toney's Florida, so I don't know. But I just never. I just don't see him staying healthy. The Giants tried to trade him right before the draft, so I just don't know how high they are on him just themselves. Even though they did bolster their offensive line, so maybe if their receiving core can stay healthy, they can get the ball. And then the Cowboys technically took a step back, but I think Dak, I mean, he's good enough to where he's gonna make it work anyway. And then as far as I feel like it's not even necessarily our corners, because I think first of all, William Jackson second half of the year, he's gonna be good. I think we're set as far as 1/3 of the field goes. We'll see how Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St. Juste, like we already talked about, step up. I think it's more so, if anything, the pressure we're gonna be able to get on quarterbacks that's going to really stop the opposing team's receivers. Because I mean, just at the NFL, no matter who the receiving core is, no matter who the DBs are, the quarterback is 8 seconds. Somebody's going to end up open, second chance opportunities and things like that. So I feel like the pressure, if anything, is more important, especially since we got so very little of it from the outside last season. And I think that was a big reason why the secondary struggled. But I think overall, I think we'll be fine. And also, I mean, AJ Brown, love him, but can he stay healthy as well?
Yeah. And I just want to say, Street, you absolutely destroyed that explanation. I wholeheartedly agree with you, given the fact that the pass rush nullifies the wide receivers more so than the corners being strapped up, to your point. But Colonel, I will say that, did we do enough? I do think so, because the one aspect of this that we're not all thinking about, I would love to have brought James Bradbury here, but let the Eagles overpay for his services. We've seen them do that at corner time and time again, where they go pay big money to these corners, and they don't perform like they did before. But I will say, this team in particular, especially last season, William Jackson III, we all talked about how early on they were one of the worst pass defenses. I mean, they finished 32nd in passing yards in the league, but a lot of that had been attested to a new defense. Benjamin St. Juste coming in here, William Jackson III. So did you really want to go pay big money again to a guy that would have to get acclimated to this defense in one offseason? Because now you're playing with that same issue you had last season. So I think that it being a second year with the same guys in that secondary room, I think that it pays more dividends than if you would have overpaid for James Bradbury and made things more difficult for you in position-wise based on where these cornerbacks are going with Kendall Fuller slot or outside. So I think that relatively the time is more important, pays more dividends than paying more money for a bigger name.
Right. I think the one thing, I mean, as Rico touched on, the pass rush should be able to kind of nullify a lot of stuff. I mean, that's going to be huge. But I do like our top 3 corner. I do like the talent that they have, the upside if they can stay healthy. I mean, like you touched on William Jackson III coming back, playing fantastic the second half of the season. Kendall Fuller, we know, played very well last season with advanced metrics, especially according to PFF, when he's not in the slot, that is. And Benjamin St. Juste showed out. If he can stay healthy, yeah, I really like his potential. I like the difference that he brings. So, yeah, I think that we're set up nice to be able to play these teams well in our division.
Yeah, and I will say I think the offense having more productivity will help the defense out a lot more. Last season, they were putrid on third down, especially in the red zone. The defense was put in a lot of bad situations running around all day long. But I want to get in a couple questions before we get you out of here, Street, just because you're somebody I want to pick your mind about. You live in Georgia, a big ATL guy. The Atlanta Stadium, obviously it's been speculated that Washington's new stadium here in the area could be domed, it could be covered, weather kind of protected, you could say. From ATL, is there anything from ATL that you've seen that you'd like to see incorporated with this new stadium?
I love the retractable roof. It just if the weather's inclement, if it's too hot, if it's too cold, which is pretty rare, but it happens, you can just close it up and have the ideal weather. But when the weather is really nice, you can let the elements in, and of course, just natural weather and temperature and
it'll be perfect up
sun
here.
is perfect when the day is great. I prefer that than the climate control weather for sure. But I mean, looking at the stadium plans, it looks like they're trying to surpass, other than the dome part, they're trying to surpass Mercedes-Benz Stadium for sure, because they're talking about a city around it, malls, theater. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is just Mercedes-Benz Stadium. There's nothing specific around it but parking lots and in a train station. There's no, you can shop here, you can take your kids here, things like that. So it looks like they're being very ambitious, especially with the LED light situation where like the stadium will be white during the day, burgundy at night. I absolutely love that idea. That I didn't even know technology like that existed yet. So, so I was really excited when I heard that. But if to take one thing from here, I would hope that it's a retractable roof. Open it when you want to, close it when you need to.
Dude, that was a loaded question because I wanted you to say the prices of the concession stands, Rico.
Oh, I wouldn't know. I eat before I go and eat as soon as I leave.
Well, the burgers are like $4, like beers are like $5. Like it's
Atlanta, are they still doing that? I remember that was like the thing when they came back, or a couple years ago, and they had like the best price food.
It was when they first opened, if I can remember correctly. I'm sure that's like 10 years ago by this point, just because time is flying.
Has it been? Fuck.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I literally just gave up hope on stadiums. I didn't even look.
Yeah, they were the only ones. And they had like record sales too as well. So hopefully,
you gotta pay $4. I'll go there. I'll get everything.
Yeah, new trend.
Paying $13 for a beer at FedEx.
New trend around the stadium. But I remember when the rebrand got announced, Street. You like kind of said some things about the uniforms, but now with OTAs, we've seen them in action with the helmets. Do you change of heart with the uniforms?
Not gonna lie, I definitely like them more than those plain old pictures that we got in the beginning.
Yeah.
And even kind of the mannequins, you weren't too sure. But now when you see them in OTAs,
picked the worst mannequins for that too. Like they were like skinny and
they had like the legs were so skinny.
Yeah, their hands and wrists were like.
We only knew it was Chase Young and Jonathan Allen because of the jersey number. Like other than that, you couldn't tell by body type at all or nothing. But the burgundy helmets, probably my favorite thing about the entire uniform setup. Can't wait to see what the black ones look like, of course. But I mean, even the white jersey that little skeptical about, I'm starting to like that more, mainly because I'm such a big fan of the burgundy helmets, the matte and everything. And I would like to see different combinations. What they may explore there, like burgundy helmet, white shirt, burgundy pants, maybe something like that.
They are doing that apparently. That's what Cam told us. Yeah, so
I'm excited.
Yeah, the Commanders on Instagram uploaded that one picture of Jahan Dotson's jersey in the white jersey with the emblem above the name on the back of the jersey. Dude, it looks so good. I cannot wait till those go out on sale.
I was the same way. Like the white ones were very underwhelming to me, and at first I almost thought that they looked cheap, like with the number fading. Like I was like, that's such like a Walmart type thing to do. But like the more and more that I see them and like the photoshops, like I'm like, all right, these have grown on me a lot. I really like these.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this episode, everybody. Street, I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. It's always a pleasure being able to talk some ball with you, just obviously because we think alike in so many aspects. But before we get out of here, which there probably is nobody out there, just because you already have everybody subscribed to you. But just in case there's somebody watching that doesn't know of you yet, that wants to come subscribe to you on social media or YouTube, if you'd like to plug your social media handles.
Thank you. You can find me on YouTube, Street Scores, STREET, space SCORES, and on Twitter, Street Scores ATL. And as always, man, thank y'all for having me. If I'm not busy, just always let me know. I will definitely pull up. I mean, I can go for longer, just anytime.
My man, I appreciate you. I really do. Because a lot of people don't want to come on for the last 30 minutes, but you did it valiantly, and you're saying you want more. That's my kind of do right there, Street. All right, everybody. We're going to head out now. We're going to see you again on Friday. Hall and I are headed to OTAs in the morning in Ashburn. We'll let you know how that goes. Be safe. Enjoy your Memorial Day. Obviously, your whole week, but enjoy the day as well. Enjoy your cookouts and everything. We appreciate everybody. We'll see you then. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
And I'm former NFL scout under Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick, Daniel Kelly.
We'll see you guys on Friday.
Twitter of all time.
Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!